You are listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I have an awesome show coming up for you guys today because we're going to talk sports today. That's right. I have attorney D.A. Wilson on with me, and we're going to talk about representing the professional athletes.
Welcome to Lewis on the Law.
I love sports. I'm a big sports guy, so I love these shows that talk about sports and music are my two things. So
yeah. You know, we waste a lot of time talking about football and your Dallas Cowboys. So
oh God,
we're trying to stay away from that.
Hey, you're right. Hey, did I show you my cufflinks?
Oh wow, nice.
You guys got to get it. You guys got to check out the cufflinks there. I limit myself to only one piece of Dallas Cowboy paraphernalia at a time.
Okay.
Either I could do the Dallas Cowboys watch, tie pins, socks, break out my Dak Prescott jersey.
Listen, you guys are on top, man. Cowboys look fantastic right now.
Yeah, they do. Hopefully that'll last. I mean, of course, New York and Washington might be on the bottom of the pile, so no telling how that's going to turn out.
But the Falcons helped you out.
They did.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, people were high on Philly, but I had to remind people Dallas swept Philly last year, and people ignore that. But I think Prescott is 5-1 against Carson Wentz, and one game he only played a quarter because it was the last game. So,
ouch!
People ignore that fact, but Philly's got their holes. And Wentz doesn't stay healthy. But enough of that.
Okay.
So I have attorney D.A. Wilson on with me, and we're talking about representing the professional athlete. And this is a great area. And an area that I thought about going into. I looked at the NFL agent program, and I had to go to D.C., and my wife was like, no, you're not. You're going to write these real estate contracts, and you're going to do these transactions, and you're going to stay here, and you're going to get stuff done. Quit smoking that pipe dream of representing big-time sports athletes.
Yeah, well, people do look at you as if you're chasing a record deal when you say you want to work athletes, but, it's a profession just like anything else.
Yeah, so I actually went to law school with a guy who did the NFL agency program.
Okay.
And he did his undergrad at UGA,
nice.
He signed Nick Chubb. He's already making in the millions.
Yeah,
and
that's a solid sign.
That is a solid sign. And I'm just like, see, that could probably wouldn't be me, but nonetheless, you look at that and Jerry and I. Jerry Parisi and I were talking about another guy we went to law school with who does, he's a slip and fall attorney, and I think he made a couple million last year.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
I work like a dog, nonstop. No. I literally work like a dog.
A little bit more difficult for us.
Yeah, and I'm not going to make $1 million this year, not even close. I won't sniff that.
$1 million, I wouldn't be here right now.
What? You wouldn't do my show?
We'd be streaming on the beach or something. Man.
Yeah, got it. No, the guy I talked to, I emailed him and I'm like, hey, come on my show and talk about sports agency. And he's like, yeah, James, I'll get back to you later. And of course, crickets. I'm just like, wait a minute, what happened?
Yeah, I got you, man. I got you. And so I'll never let you down. I'll always do the show. Now, I may be on South Beach or Bora Bora, but I will do the show, I promise.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to remember that when you hit the big time there.
Hope so.
Okay, so what is it? What type of representation? What does a professional athlete need? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so it's a wide industry. I'll tell you how I got into the industry. I played college basketball. I was a Division II player. It wasn't Kobe Bryant, LeBron, but played sports pretty much my entire life, all the way through college. And after college, I ended up going and back to school and get my master's in sports administration. And so I knew I wanted to work in sports. I couldn't play anymore. And so I said I needed.
Was it the knees?
It's everything. The knees, the feet, the Achilles, everything, man.
Yeah, with me, my knees started going out first.
It's a tough go at it. And so I wanted to work in the field professionally, not as an athlete. And so I went back and got into my master's program at Georgia State, master's in sports administration. And I fell in love with the program, just studying business, or the business side of sports. It was fantastic. And so that was the route that I chose, which was getting more education. And then after that, law school. And then after that, I went back and got another law degree in tax. And, I have a law firm. I do business and tax law in that space. But what I wanted to do was represent professional athletes in a capacity that combined all of my education and my experiences. And so, I got into the space not as an agent per se. I do represent a few athletes with my law firm on the legal side. But the business that I recently launched, Magnate Sports Management, is a business manager role for professional athletes, which is pretty much everything off the court or off the field. And we'll get into the particulars of it, but that was my path, primarily through education. There's other ways that you can get involved through, various certifications and licenses and things of that nature, depending on what type of professional that you want to be. But I look at the industry as athletes being represented by three key professionals, and that's the attorney, the agent, and the business manager.
Now, a lot of attorneys are both the attorney and the agent, or a lot of, I found out about the NFL's program because the bar sent out a notice saying that the NFL is looking for agents, and they literally sent out a notice saying there's a program here that attorneys qualify for.
Well, I'll say this, and we're both attorneys, and there's a reason why we're speaking. The JD educational experience is, in my opinion, the most impactful and most important educational experience that a person can have. Just because
now MDs might disagree with you, but hey,
the lawyers write the medical laws, so we're part of every industry on some level. Every document that you sign when you go into the hospital was drafted likely by a lawyer,
or modified by someone who drafted it off of something a lawyer did.
And so we're just a part of everything. So I can certainly understand why the NFL is looking for attorneys, because we've been trained to handle, negotiate documents at a very high level, and the more expertise that you can have in that field, the less likely that players are taken advantage of. And so I wasn't approached by the NFL, program that you were, but I can definitely agree with, that thinking, the rationale.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I was approached by it. I got an email saying
I didn't get anything.
Okay. I got an email saying it existed, and I was like, I'm gonna go and be an NFL agent.
Yeah,
of course, I told my wife about that, and she was like, no.
well, it just kind of going back over like the different roles. It is extremely important to have a very good agent, right? So the agent is primarily responsible for making sure that the player has a contract with the team. That's their primary function. Now, some agents have different roles. Some may get into endorsements. Some, you'll even see some agents that have a financial services agreement with their athlete. But primarily as an agent, they are there to get their athlete as much money as they can for their team, whether in the NBA, hockey, soccer, whatever the sport is. The attorney role.
Wait a minute. So I have a question about an agent. So you don't have to be an attorney to be an agent. Is that correct?
No, absolutely you don't. And I'll talk about this a little bit, but being a licensed attorney and being an agent at the same time can work against you in some aspects.
Like how?
Well, so for example, as an attorney, we are forbidden to solicit, right? We can't walk up to people on the street and say, hey, retain me. You should hire me. I do this, I do that.
Now, my friend, who I will not mention by name because I don't want to get in trouble, may
disagree with that.
I think there's some attorneys who are agents who are like, hey, what's going on? You look like you got a bright future.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's it's hard to detect. People can get around it, but there is a double standard because of the bar license that we carry that prohibits us from soliciting and doing certain levels of marketing. And when you carry that bar license and it's active, then the bar oversees you as a professional. They don't care if you're an agent or not. So what you'll see in the agent space a lot of times, and I interned for an agent when I was in law school, is they will pass the bar and then their license will go inactive.
Ah, got it.
And so now that they're not governed by the bar, now they can aggressively do some of the things that a attorney agent can do.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the double standard world. Now it's a cutthroat industry. Some people toe the line. I didn't want.
There are definitely people who toe the line.
Yeah. It's just not in my personality. Like I told you, I interned for an agent for full summer and
DA, I got to stop you here. We're gonna get into this in a minute, but give our listeners some contact information for you and about your new business.
Yeah, so I just launched Magnate Sports Management, which is a sports management company to help professional athletes in a business manager role. And it's magnatesportsmanagement.com, and I can be reached on my cell phone at 770-841-4550.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I got a great show going for you. I have attorney D.A. Wilson on with me, and we're talking about representing professional athletes. When we get back, we're going to look a little bit more at the distinction between agent, business manager, and attorney. You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I have an awesome show. This is a great topic. Me and DA can sit here and BS about sports all day long.
All day long.
Of course, I have a one-track mind. I'm just like, the Cowboys are awesome. The Cowboys are great. And even when they're not great and we've had our bad years, I'm still like, the Cowboys are awesome and the Cowboys are great. Look at me in my Dallas Cowboy tie.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, you're definitely a homer.
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad, but it's true. Okay, so a sports agent, the educational requirement is different. So I thought maybe you had to be an attorney to be an agent. When I got the email, I thought, oh, it's just because you have to be, but you don't. That's not the educational requirement.
You don't. Every league has its own certification process, which is kind of blended in with the Players Association and the NFL sitting down and identifying, okay, what do we want to see in an agent? Most players associations have more influence over the agents, and it's based off labor law stuff, because the players are members of the union, and so they get a chance to advocate on behalf of their players, primarily like, what do we want the agents to look like. So one of the things that kind of deterred me from being an agent, and maybe this sounds lazy, is that I didn't want to have to go take any more license and tests and things of that nature. I went to school a lot, sat for the bar. I'm tired of the classroom, and so I don't want any other test. And if I wanted to work in 3 different sports, I would have to get 3 different certifications, and so wasn't my cup of tea. And so that's why I ended up going the business manager route, which is a good segue, because probably the coolest thing about being a business manager is that there really is no license required. Anybody can be a business manager, which is why, in my opinion, it's done so poorly. Which is why, you'll see these guys playing sports and women, 5 years removed from their playing days, 60 to 7% of them file for bankruptcy because the agent gets the money to come in. The attorney wraps it up in legal stuff, but then they need someone to work with them off the field. And that business manager role it's unregulated, but it really serves, in my personal opinion, a good business manager serves as a CEO for a professional athlete. You're talking about the average athlete, an NBA athlete, maybe make $5-6 million a year.
On average.
And they're the highest of the big 4 leagues. But think about that amount of money, right? When our law firms are making $5 million, right? Next year,
I'll be doing all right.
Well, chances are we're going to have a staff of maybe 20 to 30 people, right? And so these professional athletes, in my opinion, are very successful small businesses that need kind of a business rounding out approach to them, which is why that business manager, CEO capacity is so important, because okay, now you've made $5 million. Now what do you do with it? How do you bring in your CPA? How do you bring in your investments? What type of, do you want to get involved in real estate? Do you want to start businesses?
I think it's incredibly important to prolong your money, because how many times do you hear stories of professional athletes who made, $20 million a year, and next thing you know, they're working at Walmart as a security guard.
Yeah, they're going broke, and you know, I highlight the big three: the attorney, the attorney, the business manager, and agent. The reality of it is there's other players there. There's estate planners, there's financial advisors, there's a CPA. But the three that I mentioned are probably the most important because they can vet the other professionals to really, like I said before, round out that individual. So he has representation at all levels, and he has people that help him generate revenue, protect the business, right, through insurance and through legal work, help him grow what's existing through investments and such. And so that business manager role is there, but it's unregulated. Anybody can do it. A lot of times it's someone's family member.
Now it's unregulated, but should it be regulated?
Well, it's difficult to regulate it because it's kind of a made up position, right? It's just probably something that's relatively new, 20, 30 years old. And because, in my opinion, it requires such a heavy blend of certain practice areas, right? One of the reasons why I felt qualified to be a business manager was because, before law school, I had my master's in sports administration. I worked in banking for 7 years. The tax law degree, then the JD. I have an assortment of educational experiences that I think identify with being able to vet and see different opportunities or, challenges.
That sounds a lot more useful than my degrees. I have like a degree in philosophy and a degree in journalism.
But listen,
I write well.
But listen, you've got a hit radio show, and you've got a law firm that's killing it right now. It's all about using what you have, and I think that's some of the shortcomings of the business manager is it's not regulated. Now, if it was regulated, I don't know what that looks like. And you and I are attorneys, so we understand this. There's no formal licensing body that regulates it, but there are courts, right? You can still
you can still regulate it.
Exactly. So, but the reality of it is there aren't layers upon layers of regulations like there are with, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, like there are with agents. Agents they're regulated at the state level, at the federal government level. They're regulated by the Players Association. The NCAA regulates them. There's so much red tape into becoming and remaining a successful agent. There is hardly any of that in the business manager space, and there's a lot of it in the attorney space. And so one can kind of see why the business manager space is a bit unknown, and it's not done very well, in my opinion.
Okay. So what role does an attorney have in this process then, representing athletes?
So,
I guess we're seeing it with the Antonio Brown scandal and, Ezekiel Elliott and who knows, Tyreek Hill.
Oh, my goodness. The list goes on and on. But you and I know better than most, an attorney, a JD degree is a general degree, right? It covers various areas of the law. And so when someone says, hey, I want to be a sports attorney, right? That really doesn't mean much, right?
Yeah.
Sports is an industry. It's not an area of law. And so what I tell young attorneys or aspiring attorneys, hey, if you want to work with professional athletes, find a substantive area of law that you really enjoy. Mine was business and tax law. And try to attract clients in that space. It could be antitrust. Darren Hetner, who's representing Antonio Brown right now, he is primarily an intellectual property attorney.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. I've been following him for a while. So it was interesting to see him. And he represents a lot of professional athletes in the IP space. But now he's picked up this civil litigation piece, which shows why the JD is such an amazing educational experience because it allows him to represent in different areas. And I'm sure he's a fantastic attorney. Everything that I know about him is that he's incredible. And so good for him to be able to, he worked for an agent for a while, then he went on the intellectual property side to represent athletes, and now he's doing some civil work. So that's great. That's great for us. That's job security. So that's what I tell aspiring lawyers: find out substantively how you can get in front of an athlete, what's important to them. LeBron James just applied for the Taco Tuesday. Now, it was denied. I knew that was going to get denied.
Yeah, that had to be some kind of publicity stunt. I
Yeah.
mean, Taco Tuesday, I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So, but the thing about it is, he likely engaged an intellectual property attorney or someone to handle that application for him.
Mm-hmm.
And although it was denied, as an attorney, you can say, listen, I just want to work with professional athletes in protecting their likeness and intellectual property. I want to just work like attorney DA and do tax and business law for them. And so, or you could, you could do family law. You could do the divorces, so to speak. So there's so many different areas that you can represent a professional athlete. It's not about representing, an athlete per se. It's what needs do they have in their life. And my practice areas are business and tax law, and now I have this entity.
Excellent. DA, we are at the end of this segment again. Will you give our listeners some contact information for you real quickly?
Sure. So it's D.A. Wilson of Magnate Sports Management, magnatesportsmanagement.com. And my cell phone number is 770-841-4550.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and this show not only airs on Biz 1190 AM, but we're also airing, and this is the first week, you're going to be the first guest on News 920.
Oh, really?
So we're airing on News 920 at 7 a.m. and
awesome.
and Biz 1190 at 9 a.m.
Nice.
And this show also streams nationally on every single national streaming platform that you can think of: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify,
Wow.
You name it, and we stream nationally.
Man, you're growing fast.
I know, right? And we are even AI compatible. You can go, hey, Alexa, play Lewis on the Law, episode 62 with attorney D.A. Wilson, and this show will come streaming out of your AI listening device.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
When we get back, I'm not a millionaire yet. I need to make I need to make that big jump somewhere along the line. Maybe it'll happen. You're listening to Lewis on the Law. When we get back, we're going to talk more about the requirements of becoming one of these big three: lawyer, attorney, business rep.
All right, thanks.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I have an awesome show going for you today. We are talking representing the professional athlete, or I'm talking representing the professional athlete with attorney D.A. Wilson on with me, and this is a great topic. I know me and D.A., we love talking sports. And,
That's all we talk about.
It's all we talk about. It's good stuff, and there's a lot to it. Before we get back into it, I need to go ahead and let you guys know that this show is meant to empower you, the listener. This show is only meant to give out legal information. This show is not presenting legal advice. If you have a serious legal issue, go ahead and hire an attorney. You can always go to my old shows and find one on my website, jameslewislegal.com. I allow all the attorneys that come onto my show to give out contact information. You can always contact me at jameslewislegal.com. You can email me at james@jameslewislegal.com, or you can give me a phone call at 404-610-0075. And if I can't help you with your legal issue, I may be able to help you find an attorney who can help you with your legal issue. Or like I said, you can actually, all my shows are archived on my website, so you can go through them and look at your legal issue and then contact an attorney directly. I want to let you guys know that this show is also now airing in the Atlanta area on News 920 AM, and we are also still on the business network, Biz 1190 AM, and we are streaming nationally on every single major national streaming platform that you can think of. You can say, hey, Google Play. I think it's just, hey, Google. Play Lewis on the Law, episode 62 with attorney D.A. Wilson, and voila! I think it's so cool. I tried this out because I like to show how cool I am to myself.
Yeah, that's it.
That's exactly how deep my narcissism goes. So I'm like, wow, I can do this. It's like technology is so cool that you can do this kind of thing now.
Typical attorney. I got you.
I know, right? That's sad. It's sad to admit, but maybe I'll get better if I say it out loud.
It's only gonna get worse.
Oh, okay. So, what type of educational background? I mean, we kind of touched on this. You said agents don't really have to have an educational background. I mean, can just any Tom, Dick, and Harry become a sports agent?
Yeah,
Is that how easy it is?
It varies from sport to sport. I'll give you an example in NBA, which recently the NCAA tried to roll out a requirement that agents have a college degree, and they got a bunch of pushback just because many people felt like they were targeting one specific agent, Rich Paul, which is LeBron James' agent.
He doesn't have a college degree.
He does not have a college degree, and so.
But he's just a super savvy businessman. I mean, he's got LeBron James in his pocket,
well,
so that's all you need right there.
He came up with LeBron, and he's worked extremely hard. He's had a lot of success, and some people view him as just getting too big for his britches, I guess, right? And so.
And he didn't have to suffer like the rest of us. People like you and me, we ended up collecting degrees, and that's a lot of suffering.
Listen, we don't want to talk about student loans. I'll just throw up right here. But so that was an example of kind of the regulation that can creep in the NCAA saying that, but then they backed off of that, right? And so it really is based on the sport. But for the most part, there is no college educational requirement. There is a licensing requirement that you must, pass and things of that nature, much like someone may have a license in securities or insurance and things of that nature. So there is a threshold of you need to be educated in this sport. And I agree with that. I even think Rich Paul agreed with that. He had no problem with the licensing requirement because you're dealing with, young people and a lot of money. And there does need to be a screening or educational process that goes into that, and so yeah, that's generally on the agent side, and so with lawyers, and I talked about the different various educational requirements for lawyers and such, or the various substantive areas of law for lawyers. But one thing I didn't really harp on is the educational requirements for becoming a lawyer, and you and I know this. So you have to go to college, 4-year college. You have to take the LSAT for the most part. You have to then go to law school and successfully complete that. And then after that, you sit for the bar, and then you wait 3 months, and you're nervous, and then you pass, and then finally you get sworn in. So to become a lawyer, there's just so much education. I mean, at the very least, there's going to be 7 years of post-high school education, followed by very tough bar exam.
Yeah.
And that will limit you to practice law in particular states. Now, as it relates to the agency piece, most states allow agents that are attorneys to handle contracts in different states and not have to pass the bar to do so.
Yeah.
And they realize, because it's just, being an athlete is a very fluid process. You're going in between states. You don't want to have someone who's representing Antonio Brown, for example, in California. Now he's in Massachusetts, and his agent, who's an attorney, can't negotiate that contract without sitting for the bar.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible. It's not smart. And so there's a carve out for agents who are attorneys to not have to take a bar exam in each state to represent their players in various states, which makes sense.
Well, it almost seems like a good idea that if you're an attorney and you want to become a sports agent, you maybe shouldn't sit for the bar.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you've already got the JD, then just go ahead and get your certification in one of the 3 big sports, or maybe all 3 of them, and just go on and become an agent.
Well, and what, I asked that question. I met with a gentleman whose son plays in the NBA. I won't say his name, but and I asked him, how did you make your decision between choosing between agents? He was considering Rich Paul and this other guy. And he said, well, one of the things that we really wanted to see is we liked that this particular agent who we hired was an attorney, and a licensed attorney. That stuck out to him. So there is value in saying, hey, I'm an agent. Hey, and there's value in saying, hey, I'm an agent that's also an attorney and that's licensed. Different strokes for different folks, basically. So it just depends. But as I said before, you just have to be really careful because, the state bar is going to look over your shoulder as an attorney. And, I don't want any trouble with State Bar of Georgia, the American Bar Association. You know how much time we put into our license.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm always worried about that. That's why sometimes I cater to clients that are problematic because I don't want a bar complaint because then my insurance goes up. And malpractice insurance is already expensive.
Oh, yeah. And people don't understand that. There's anytime you have a license, there's a cost. There's a regulatory side of that you have to deal with, ethics and things of that nature.
Well, with attorney, just maintaining the license is expensive. First, you got your bar fees, then you have your CLEs, and malpractice insurance, and I have to have errors and omissions insurance too to do real estate transactions.
Yeah, no, it gets pretty pricey. So that's why we charge like $700 an hour, right?
Yeah, I'm not that expensive yet. No, I have big dreams. Yeah,
I wish I could. Right.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about attorneys, agents, and how about business managers? Is there a certain educational requirement? And like we've already talked about it, there's not much regulation that guides them. So what kind of protections do athletes have against picking the wrong business manager?
Well,
not much.
Us.
Okay. Their attorney.
Their attorney, right? And this is why attorneys are so important, right? Because attorneys are going to be a part of everything, every transaction. The agreement between the athlete and the CPA, the agreement between the athlete and the agent, the agreement between the athlete and the business manager. There's so many different ways for an attorney to be involved in an athlete's life. You don't want to draft your own agreement, right? And so if you bring on, let's say you bring on my company, my firm to be your business manager, although I'm an attorney, I'm going to draft my own agreement, but I would recommend that the athlete take this to their attorney or another attorney and get a second opinion and make sure that they're comfortable with what's going on. Now, one of the benefits, and I'm, toot my own horn here, one of the benefits of hiring me as your business manager, as opposed to someone who doesn't have any other licenses, is that I do have a license, and I am held to the standard of the State Bar of Georgia. And the last thing that I'm going to do is compromise a license that feeds my family. And that's
exactly because if you lose your license, what are you going to do? Stock shelves?
So one of the things that I advise athletes and just people in general is that it's really, really smart to get into business with people that you can hold accountable, that have licenses and things around them that are at risk, right?
Exactly.
You want people representing you that have skin in the game. I'm married. I have 2 small kids. I love working with professional athletes, but the last thing I'm going to do is do something unethical that I know I could go get, as you said, a bar complaint.
Yeah, or even worse, right?
Even worse, or go to jail. And so the reputational harm that may cause to my law practice and my sports management company, it's just not worth it. And so, I learned that in law school in my bankruptcy course. Always hire or put an insurance company or a big company on the hook. Someone that you can eventually have recourse against. Just hiring someone that doesn't have anything to lose and that doesn't have any training and skills, and it's not a guarantee. But I will tell you this: it's a lot better than hiring somebody that if you sue them, then they don't have any assets. You may get a judgment, but good luck collecting.
Yeah, can't squeeze blood out of a turnip.
Yeah.
DA, we're at the end of the segment. Will you give our listeners some contact information for you again?
Yeah, so it's DA Wilson. I'm here on behalf of my sports management company, which is Magnate Sports Management. And my phone number is 770-841-4550.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. We've got a great show going for you. I've got attorney D.A. Wilson on with me, and we're talking about representing the professional athlete. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the legal climate and current events surrounding sports today. You're listening to Lewis on the Law. My name is James Lewis, and I've got an awesome show going for you guys today. Before we get back into this, I want to go ahead and let you guys know that this show is only meant to empower you, the listener. It's designed to be your first step in any legal issue. It may help you decide what kind of attorney you're looking for, whether you have a case or not, or what kind of legal issues you need to preserve. This show is in no way meant to replace the advice of an attorney. If you have a very serious legal issue, you need to go ahead and hire an attorney. We are giving out information only and not legal advice. You can always find attorneys on my show. I allow each attorney that comes on my show to give out contact information. And if you need help, you can always just give me a call at 404-610-0075. You can go to my website on my contact page. On the very last page of my website, there's a contact page. You can drop me a line. If you have a topic you want to hear on this show, you can also drop me a line on that page, and I'll bring an attorney on who knows something about that topic, and we'll get into it on air. You can also email me at james@jameslewislegal.com. Okay, lots of good stuff going on here. We talked about attorneys, agents, business managers. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on today, because athletes are always in the headline, and their agents are, their legal issues are always in the headline. It goes on and on and on. So what's going on in the legal climate today around the sports industry?
There's, of course, we talked about the Antonio Brown, saga that continues.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, he had an issue with his helmet. What? Do you know anything about that?
Well, just a little bit. He just the NFL kind of changed the way that they wanted players to use helmets. Technology improves, and they're saying, hey, now you can no longer use a helmet from 1950, for example. And
one of those leather deals?
Yes.
Those things are cool. I want one of those.
So
I'll just wear it around every single day, like, look at my cool helmet.
Yeah, and so, Antonio Brown, he's represented by his agent, by an attorney. He has Players Union, Players Association as his kind of first grievance, backdrop. And so he filed a couple grievances to say, hey, I want to use this particular helmet. Well, most of the terms in these new rules that are rolled out in the NFL or any league are already negotiated between the league, right? So it's already spoken to the fact that, hey, the NFL has, for example, unilateral control within reason over the use of helmets on the field. And so his two grievances were shot down. There was really no merit to him because this is just something that happens in every sport. Things evolve.
That's just Antonio Brown being Antonio Brown. Right?
There are some people that, saying he's for the people. I don't believe that. I mean, I think he's a great guy, but the helmet deal, it went on a little bit too long.
He's a little bit of a diva.
Yeah, and he played on Sunday, and he caught a touchdown with the new helmet. So, I'm glad we're past that. So those are things that can pop up. It can be something that's in just, player safety space that they're not comfortable with. Now he's involved in the sexual assault thing that's off the field, unrelated. Most contracts these days will have, provisions in there that say, listen, if you do something crazy, we can either void or do whatever the case may be. There are certain behavioral languages in these contracts. And again, these provisions are negotiated between the Players Association and the NFL. And, there's some minor tweaks that agents maybe can do, but for the most part, most of that stuff is boilerplated. And so players have to be careful because, 20, 30 years ago, there weren't these provisions in there that said if you got in trouble off the court or off the field, that your contract could be compromised. And now, and that goes for the endorsement space and everything. So now that's just a part of doing business. Affecting the brand of particular businesses will be a quick way to get your contract torn up.
And in a way, sometimes that's unfair. I mean, I could see if you've done something illegal, like drunk driving, or you're caught dealing drugs or something like that. But in most workplaces, what you do outside of the office doesn't actually affect you inside the office, unless, like I said, you've done something illegal. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. These guys are public figures. Probably one of the more difficult things, and I go back and forth on this because we're attorneys and there's due process, right? And so now teams like the NFL are in a space where they have to make a move and maybe put somebody off the field before they've been given their due process.
And that does seem bizarre how that goes about, but it's what the NFLPA agreed to, right?
Well, in some aspects they have agreed to it, but it is, at least in an NFL situation, the commissioner has a lot of discretion, and so that's where things can kind of go left, because if you got the video, right, that's one thing. But if it's just word of mouth, and there have been cases where I think there's 1-2 years ago, young lady made accusations for a guy for the 49ers and got him suspended. I think he lost his contract. And then maybe a year later, she came back and said everything was false. I just made it up. I wanted to penalize him.
Well, that's why it seems so arbitrary at times. I mean, of course, I've said a million times I'm a Cowboys fan. I've got my Cowboys cufflinks going on here. But, the whole Ezekiel Elliott thing, I mean, they hired an investigator to investigate it. She basically said there's nothing to investigate here. The girl's friend said, she said she's going to go out and get Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah. And sure enough, the commissioner backed her up and suspended him for 6 games.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
I mean, it's arbitrary at a certain point. Then there are other players who, you're like, oh, that guy's going to get suspended. Yeah. And he's playing next week.
Yeah. And from the legal perspective, I mean, these are constitutional issues, right? These are.
It seems like it would be.
It's like, how can you take someone's constitutional right? There's a lot of gray area. I don't know. A lot of times these things will get hammered out in various collective bargaining agreements or strikes and lockouts and things of that nature. From what I hear, the NFL, which is probably has the more adversarial player league relationship right now, is headed for probably a lockout of some sort, because they're just so far apart from what I hear. But some leagues, players work very well with the league. So the NBA.
Well, yeah, that's because the NBA and baseball, they've pretty much given in to the players. They're okay, you guys get what you want.
Yeah. So it's it's very interesting. Antonio Brown's situation and everything that he has going on is very interesting. There's a situation a few years ago with Todd Gurley, who played at UGA right up the street, and he was probably on pace to win the Heisman Trophy, and ended up signing some autographs for money. Yeah, NCAA found out. That kind of compromises amateurism and got suspended and such. And so we've talked about agents getting in trouble for that. But one thing that we haven't talked about is what happens when there's someone who's not an agent, someone who's just, a dealer of autographs, right? And so what Georgia did was the state of Georgia enacted a bill to basically go after those individuals that induce, amateur athletes and compromise, their eligibility. And, it's finable up to $5,000 and up to a year in prison. And one of the wrinkles in that actual bill, which is ironic, is that the schools actually have a right to file lawsuits against these guys, ladies who induce these players personally, and make up for damages for lost contracts. Say you had a primetime game on ABC and Todd Gurley left, and now that contract is now voided, whatever the case is. There's lost revenues, and so there are harsh penalties for not only agents but individuals who kind of induce these athletes to compromise their amateurism. So it's the legal landscape. It's ever spreading, right?
I mean, that seems like such a double standard because you have these huge megalithic monopolies basically saying what people can and cannot do and how they can make money, and especially when it comes to professional or amateur athletes there. I mean, some of these college teams are making massive amounts of revenue off of their college athletes. And yet these athletes and some of the people that are associated with them will get in trouble for making a small amount of money on the side.
Yeah, well, and that's a great segue into what California just rolled out.
You know what? DA, this show goes by fast, and we didn't even get into the new California athletic endorsement bill.
Yeah.
But our time is over.
We'll finish this conversation at the water cooler.
Yeah, got it. Because this is great. We didn't even get into the California endorsement bill, and I was like, I want to get into that.
Yeah.
And we did not get there. But DA, will you give our listeners some contact information for you?
Sure. DA Wilson. I'm the founder of Magnate Sports Management. My phone number is 770-841-4550.
You're listening to Lewis on the Law. This has been a great show. I'd like to thank Attorney D.A. Wilson for being on with me. I'd also like to thank the man who brought this show to life today, Mr. Jonathan Bryant over there, the wizard behind the screen of Oz or whatever you want to call it. I love you guys. I'll see you next week.